So I had 6 slides. I'm here to talk to you about some of the things that I've learned. One of them is an obsession about product. You can never make it good enough. You can never make it better enough. There's always things to do in your product. Never rest on your laurels. The tech companies I see that get into trouble is because they stop developing their technology. My company was SaaS, started in 2002, the last one, when no one knew what SaaS was. And we started mobile. July 10th, 2008, we had a mobile app on Apple's iOS App Store on the first day. There was 552 apps in the world. That took guts to make that bet and build with beta code from Apple to get out on the first day. But we never stopped enhancing our product. The next one is a focus on customers. If you ever go and find one of my customers and you talk to them what it was like to work with Neil, they're going to say, well, he was obsessive about us. He just said yes all the time. One of the things that our customers and partners would remember about me is that I always said yes. I always wanted to do the right thing for the customers. And even as we grew and got bigger and better and over 100 employees, we never forgot the fact that it's all about the customers. And you should never do that. You raise a big round of funding. We raised a lot of money. It was in green currency, US dollars. We never forgot what was important, which was our customers. The next one is about teams. You need to build great teams. And I put one word in here. There's always about growing teams and developing teams. But the thing I wanted to share with you is it's also important that you prune your teams. Because you're going to find as you grow that some of the people just don't fit in anymore. Or they never fit in, but you never got around to noticing it, which is a bad thing. You should do that. And then sometimes it's not the right fit anymore, and you need to make those tough decisions so your company can be healthy. At our company, basically, people would turn around and realize everybody was pulling in the same direction. They were all nice. One of our core qualities we hired for was nice. And we kept it that way because we kept the team fresh. And if we needed to take someone, find a new career kind of thing, we did that thing, even though it was difficult to do. Another one is values. You have to have values in your company, whatever they are. Like if you want to be assholes, then make sure that's one of your core values, so that you don't kind of tell everybody you're nice, but when people start with the company, they find out you're not. It's really important to have consistent values across the company. You got to work on it. You got to build them. You got to nurture them. But they are the bedrock of the company. You need to focus on that. Next one is pivot. Okay, so pivoting is really important. My last company started out doing timesheets and expense reports for consulting companies. And you know what? Almost every one of the customers right now is expenses only, and they're big ones like Fitbit. I'm not thinking about them all right now, but we have a lot of big brands and companies that use the product. But if we had stayed true to what we started out with, we would have missed what we became because we wouldn't have pivoted. So you're going to have lots of these decisions, and I encourage you to make those big strides and go to the next thing and make sure that your company stays fresh. I don't know the history of it, but Slack is a big high-growth software company, and it didn't start out with what they have today. They had to pivot because they built technology and realized it was cool for something else than what they'd originally intended. My final point is around money. At some point, your company has to make money. In this environment, you can actually raise capital. Sometimes there's a lot more down in the valley, but you can raise it in Canada now. And you can kind of run for a while building your business without making money. But all companies do exist to make profit. That's what they have to do, or eventually they will die. And you always have to be keeping that in mind when you're building your business and you're thinking about it and the things that you want to do with your business. So finally, I think Alex, I've never had a week's vacation in my life, pretty much. I've never been sick at work in my entire life, and I'm really old now. But I've had 4 months off. And what I want to do is help young entrepreneurs and people with businesses. So if you have any questions, any things you want to ask me, I've done the private equity route. I bought companies. I bought a company in Philadelphia, done all kinds of fun stuff. The HR stories are legendary. If any of you that started a business, you know that within about a year, crazy stuff happens. I'm happy to be here. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to share my experiences with you. So thank you. I'm open for questions. I don't have the J score, so yes, back there.
Hey Neil, my name is Mike. I've been a decade at KPMG. I know the importance of client service and customer relationships. do you have a story where customer relationships beat out the cost of the product? I'm sure you have competitors where cost kind of comes into play, but maybe the customer relationship valued over the cost of the product.
I talked to one of my competitors at one point, actually a number of them. Actually, we compete with a company called Concur. You might know it because they're the biggest expense management vendor on the planet. And about a year ago, the Concur salespeople walked up to our booth at one of the trade shows, and they said, hi, Neil, nice to meet you. We know that if we're competing with you, we're going to lose, right? And that's because of our dedication to customers and our obsession about our product. They knew they couldn't compete. No matter what they did on pricing, they would always go low on us, and we would go high, just to use a phrase that's been used. But they would try and undercut us all the time, even though they were the big industry player. But because of our reputation and what we would do for customers and our passion for them, they couldn't make inroads. So yeah, it's that passion for customers. It's a big barrier to entry because a lot of people don't have it. Any other questions? Yes, Alex.
What's the biggest advantage of working out of starting a company in Toronto?
What's one of the biggest advantages of starting a company in Toronto? Well, it's actually part of what's on the fact sheet here. You're talking about diversity, and it was about gender diversity actually on this sheet. Toronto has such a diverse base of possible employees. It's amazing. It's just because we're so inclusive, nobody should get left behind, and everybody should be pulling in the same direction. But because we have this diversity and because we're accepting of it, and I encourage you all to be very accepting of it, it's one of our biggest strengths. I was never more proud about 9 months ago when we hired our first employee who's Muslim, and she asked for a prayer room. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So we busily found a room that we could dedicate to her during the time she wanted to pray, for her prayer room. And I thought that was really cool. And that was through a lot of xenophobia that was going down south of the border. So it was really cool to see Canada kind of stepping up and having a different path forward. And I think that's one of our strengths. Yes.
Hi, I have a question with regards to your comment about customers and how you always say yes.
Yes.
Well, sometimes customers are not the users, right? So
Right.
What's your take on that from your experience? Like, have you ever had to make a change on a product or a service that was not necessarily the better thing for the actual user?
No, we always kept the end user at heart in everything we did. That's why we went mobile at the very first possible opportunity. Customers can make weird requests that don't make sense and are not scalable, and you can't really do it that way. But a lot of times we just come back and say, well, we don't want to do it that way because of this reason. We want to do it another way because we think it's better for you in the long run and more scalable. And they were always very appreciative of that. They actually respect you and really want to hear your expertise. They're not just kind of at least in my experience, they weren't just demanding things that didn't make sense. They were usually asking for things that made a lot of sense. And we built a lot of stuff. Yes, last question.
A lot of companies in Canada especially are very afraid to invest in new technologies. So that's kind of one of the features of the Canadian economy. What would you say to those companies?
Well, a two-part answer. For all the entrepreneurs in the room, sell to Americans first. I can't tell you the percentage of our revenue that was US dollar based, but it was close to triple digits on percentage-wise. So if you want to break into a market and you want to find people that are, it's not like Canadians are terrible. Canadians are the same as the French and the Germans and the guys in the UK. Like the US just make decisions faster and they're very more accepting of technology. For those companies that are out there that are kind of being reticent about, we would find roadblocks where Canadian companies didn't want to work with us. They'd rather deal with an American company. And we're like, but we're Canadian, and they were like, well, I don't know if you're any good, right? And I'm like, well, all the American customers like us, how come you won't? So my message is to those Canadian companies that are reticent about technologies, you got to step up and we got to support each other in this thing. And there's an incredible amount of great talent and great software that's being built in this country. And we need to embrace it and support it, just like all the other regions in the world are supporting their startup community. Thank you.